This is The Sports Life.
4.2 seconds left. We're going to the Elite Eight. Here comes Ole Miss for one half-court desperation shot. It's good, but it doesn't matter. We've got a final from Atlanta. We're moving on.
3.9, Flage launches from half court. It's off the glass. Final four's up. The Bruins are headed to Tampa.
And there you go, some moments at the end of great games in the NCAA tournament. One for Michigan State on the men's side and one for UCLA on the women's side. And welcome into the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. And our show this week is pretty interesting. And one of the great stories in sports, I think, Dalton, is how the theme song for college basketball, one shining moment, how we actually got that song, and it clearly wasn't by design.
It's an unbelievable story that, matter of fact, started on a napkin. Make sure you stay with us for that later on. But as we celebrate UCLA going to its first ever Final Four on the women's side, you heard at the top. In hockey, Penn State's going to its first ever Frozen Four. And the voice of the Nittany Lions hockey team, Brian Tripp, will be joining us later to talk about the ride it has been this season for Penn State. And also, Jon Crispin's going to join us here in a couple of moments to talk about what it's like to be a student athlete in today's landscape.
It's interesting, to say the least.
That's a word.
Yeah, it's a word, yes. So let's talk about our sounds of the week.
Well, let's go ahead and start. And we also heard at the top that Michigan State on the men's side was the only Big Ten team to advance to the Elite Eight, and what a season it was for Tom Izzo and the Spartans. Tom Izzo actually talked after the loss to Auburn in the Elite Eight about, and reflected about what the year was for MSU.
Well, for the 30th year, I'm not sure I've ever been prouder in a team, and there's so much coach speak and things that go on in programs all over, but these guys gave me everything they had and drained them of everything. They should take a week off. There's nothing left in them, and that's kind of the way it was in the locker room. It was a tear-jerking locker room because they knew they spilled it all, and yet we thought we started out poorly, which we've had that little bit of a problem lately, and we just couldn't recover from that 17-0 run. It wasn't through lack of effort. It wasn't through lack of anything except we played a good team, and Broom hurt us early. We made some adjustments, did a little better job on him after he hit those first, I think, 6 or 8 points. And I thought we missed some good shots in there, but maybe some of it was their defense too. So all in all, you don't get defined. Unfortunately, your last game wears with you. I'm asking these guys that if it does, make sure it does, that you do something about it in your life. And for Jaden, he's not done playing basketball either. But all in all, the most unbelievable year I've had, the most connected year I've had. And I just appreciate what these guys did for myself, our program, our university, and our community.
Tom Izzo, the head basketball coach at Michigan State. And it was interesting. I remember being on the morning show on Sirius XM, and they asked me about, in Michigan State at that point, Dalton had won like 10 or 11 in a row. Mm-hmm. And they asked me, well, is there a flaw with the team? And I said, yeah, it can't shoot. Yet it's averaging 80 points a game. So how does that all work? But the Michigan State team won the regular season by 3 full games. They're the Big Ten champs. Nobody thought much of them at the beginning of the year. No members on the first team all-conference or second team all-conference. But they just found a way to play basketball and win. And like Coach said there, that 17-0 run was a killer. But at the end of the day, they won 30 games, and they just did it kind of old school. And his roster was put together old school.
That is a successful story by any way you want to try and cut it. It is an inspiring Spartan team this year. Well, we just heard from Coach Tom Izzo. There's a new head coach in Big Ten men's basketball as the drama of Kevin Willard in College Park finally ends with him taking the job at Villanova. The Terps find their new top guy. It's Buzz Williams coming over from Texas A&M. Here's what he had to say with his introductory press conference.
Anybody associated with the team that we'll be a part of now will give their best. And we'll give our best from early in the morning until we can't go anymore. And all of us will have an insatiable desire to figure out how to change our best, because staying status quo, we know, is never good enough. And so we'll give our best, and we need every opportunity for our newest team to learn about the former teams. And we need to develop growth and trust and life-changing relationships on the new team so we can be the best team. And I understand that there are a lot of positions on a team, and I've kind of got lost all of the new titles in athletic administration. And I've gotten lost in all of the new titles even on my staff, that I don't know what they're called anymore. But I do know that regardless of what you're called, whether you came here as a freshman, whether you came here from the portal, whether you're the director or the deputy or the starter or the sub, you have a role on the team. And we want to do our best to play a role on the team represented in this arena, represented on this campus, represented in this department, represented in this institution.
Buzz Williams, a new head basketball coach at Maryland. And it's interesting as I look at the team he is taking over. Of course, Kevin Willard goes to Villanova, but they were number 4 seed in the tournament this year, got to the Sweet 16, finished second in the Big Ten, and ended up with 27 wins. So at the end of the day, Dalton, Buzz Williams tends to go where they need help. Well, these guys did pretty good.
They most certainly did, but you and I have talked about this beforehand. The Crab 5 is mainly going to be gone there in College Park, so it'll be interesting to see how Buzz replenishes things with that team. The final sound of the week we have for you, we go to Minneapolis, where the voice of the Gopher hockey squad, Wally Shaver, called the action in the opening round of the NCAA tournament between Minnesota and UMass. Folks, this came down to a pretty controversial ending, and the Gophers feel slighted, and you'll hear from Wally Shaver why here in a moment. But this was the game-winning goal for UMass in overtime and the events that led to it.
Chesley, he carries the center. He's Tripp. How do you not call this? I know it's overtime, but for crying out loud, he's got the puck and he's Tripp. Meanwhile, back comes Mass. They shoot. They score! Oh, my God. What poor officiating. Chesley's Tripp falls down. No penalty is called. UMass immediately turns it back up ice, and they score in overtime at 4:49 and win the game.
Well, I got nothing.
He didn't mince words on that one.
I mean, obviously we saw a lot this basketball season, so... But at the end of the day, if it's as obvious as Wally Shaver is saying it is, you got to call it.
I was going to say, I saw the clip as well online. I didn't catch it in real time, but I saw the replay, and it was pretty obvious, pretty blatant, and of course, as sports always works, right, it immediately leads to the other end, things happening, and it's a tough one to swallow if you're a Gopher fan.
Well, when the sports life continues, up next will be our chat with Jon Crispin. He played college basketball at the highest level. He currently works for ESPN. And he's got some thoughts on how college basketball can stay the great game it is. Back with more in just a moment.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
Medicaid and CHIP offer free or low-cost health coverage for children and teens. Hospital and doctor visits, prescriptions, shots, and more are covered. That's peace of mind for parents if a child is sick or gets injured. And parents may now be eligible for Medicaid too, even if they've applied in the past. Enrollment is always open. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 1-877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
If you have diabetes, listen up. If you have insurance, you can qualify for a continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends and spend more time in range, significantly lowering your A1C. More importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate: painful finger sticks. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and if you've seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, you may qualify for your own CGM right now. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances will cover your CGM, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the Aptiva Medical CGM Health Hotline right now.
800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. That's 800-948-6912.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Roxanne Watson is on a mission.
Hello, how are you doing today?
She wants more people to register as organ, eye, and tissue donors.
Are you an organ donor?
Yes, I am.
Yay.
My goal is to sign up the most people in the United States.
What drives her? Roxanne's own life was saved through the gift of a heart transplant, made possible by an organ donor.
I decided that day that I was going to devote myself to the cause of organ donation and signing people up and honoring my donor by doing that.
Now she's back to health, and she's a powerful force helping to save lives every day through her work. Imagine what you can make possible by leaving behind the gift of life.
8 people can be helped with the major organs, and up to 50 people can be helped with a little bit of everything. And when you think about it that way, that you could help that many people, it's amazing. It really is.
Learn more and sign up as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. Go to organdonor.gov. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
And welcome back to more of the Sports Life. Will Teeman here along with Dalton Shetler. And don't forget, Auto Owners Insurance, simple human sense. Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you. Well, in the wide world of sports, you can be humbled, you can be a hero, you can be all those things, and somewhere in between you can land there as well. And we've invited Jon Crispin to join us on this show. He's currently one of the guys on ESPN, talk college hoops all the time. And Jon, thanks for joining us. And the reason why we asked Jon to be part of the show is he has experienced that. As a college basketball player at Penn State, things were great. He looked for the promised land at UCLA, and things were not quite as good there. So Jon has joined us to talk about one thing, and that is the current environment for the student athletes. And Jon, do you think what's going on right now with the NIL and the quick transfers is good for young student athletes?
No, absolutely not. Look, I think it's good for them based on what we, promote and value right now, which is money, power, superficial success. But long term, I don't think these are things that set you up to become a good professional. Right? We always use the term pro to kind of define someone's potential, but the reality is we all have to learn how to be professional at whatever it is we do. We have to be professional in our habits. We have to be professional in our approach. We have to be professional in our respect for whatever it is that we're doing. I don't think we're developing that. And it doesn't mean that what we're doing is 100% or entirely wrong. What we're doing is just rushed. I don't think there's a sense of sustainability behind it. I also don't think there's any purpose behind how it's making people better. It's just giving people what they want, right? What's the best way to ruin your children? Give them everything they want. I feel like that's what we're doing, but we're not creating good habits. We're not putting kids in a situation where they have to develop under the guise of accountability, which is the healthiest thing to have as a kid, where you don't have all the answers. You have to learn them. You have to be taught. You have to develop a healthy fear of authority, which is just part of progress in life. So I think we've jumped a few steps, and I feel like it's something we're probably going to have to figure out how to revert to, and good luck with that.
Most certainly good luck with that. And I think you speak for a lot of people, John. I think a lot of people feel that way and feel that maybe the progression of these student athletes is being hindered as people. But just another, there's so many different holes you could poke in this, John, but another one is the logistics of, look, we're getting ready for what should be a really fun Final Four. Maybe some of those players aren't in the best situation where they would want to be in the transfer portal, but they should be focusing on the Final Four. But you have the portal active at the same time. I mean, just logistically, this layer of it is ridiculous.
I mean, this is what you get when you have anarchy at the forefront, and that's really what it is. We say things like the Wild Wild West, and I say it is pure, unfettered anarchy, where there are no rules, and even worse, there's no one to enforce any rule if you had it. And I felt like a couple of years ago, what Congress got involved and in a way kind of neutered the NCAA, where the NCAA couldn't be a governing body that oversaw this. The NCAA was kind of told you, you're useless anyway. You don't have the right to enforce the rules. We disagree with your rules. And now you start bringing up employment law and all these other things. And well, what does the NCAA do? Well, we give. We just say, all right, well, we're going to allow the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness. And as if that players or personnel or coaches were going to stay within a certain framework, right? There was no one to police it. So, of course, whatever you're going to allow is going to be taken to the extreme. And I feel like that's what's expected in an anarchical society, let alone business where there's money involved, right? There are no rules and there's no one to enforce them. So what do we expect is going to happen? I do blame coaches a lot of the time because I think a lot of the issue is we have fearful coaches, which is understandable. It's human nature to have the job that you fought for your entire life. You know, Tom Izzo probably made $5,000 when he first started as a coach, and he's worked his way up to become the professional that he is. And on any given year, he could be fired. Everything he says or does could be something that gets him fired. Like, there's a lot of pressure. So I get that. But there are a lot of coaches out there that they don't care. And they'll do whatever it takes to win. They'll go raise money. They'll go to that booster over there on the corner and say, I need $3 million to get 2 players. Like, that's a really strange way to go about business. It's not sustainable. And I do feel like if we don't have conversations about defining morality within our sport, then we're going to lose our sport. Because morality and community and the unifying nature of sport is ultimately what got us the value that we have today. So we can't lose that and expect this thing to continue.
Well, John, in your experience, your 2 years at Penn State, your 2 years at UCLA as a player, the ups and downs, have you been able to gather anything from that you could forward on to a young player that can help him?
Yeah, I'll say that the most valuable experience or most valuable aspect of my experience was the humility I found by going someplace and not having it work. Like, we don't even like to face failure anymore, because the second we get to that point where we go, I didn't achieve at the level I expected to achieve, and people are defining me by my outcomes, because that's the whole culture of sport. We're defined by our outcomes. It's the danger of the culture of sports. I went to UCLA where I was a 2-year starter at Penn State. And I'm telling you that the experience at Penn State was incredible. It was communal. I belonged there. I fit with those people. They loved me. I loved them. It was the best situation, almost too good, to be honest. I then go to UCLA where I think I want to play for a national championship, because as a competitor, the Sweet 16 wasn't enough. I didn't like the fact that we celebrated a Sweet 16 as if we should hang a banner. We didn't win anything. We lost. And there were other teams that were better. That bothered me. So I go to UCLA, and ultimately what I realized I found was humility. Right? I understood what I was, but I also understood what I was not. And that was one of the healthiest things for me as a young adult to figure out. Because what I went through 3 years later when I stopped playing professionally, I went through this moment where everyone's going to go through this. Even LeBron James is going to go through this. Who am I, and what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Had I not found humility, I don't know if I can go through that process as well as I did. Had I not found humility and purpose in something other than just playing a sport, had I not found all that, I don't know if I'm ready to transition to the rest of my life. I don't know if I'm the father and husband that I am today, had I not found that humility. So we try so hard to protect young kids We have the everybody gets a trophy society and culture. I get that. We want people interested in our sport. But the truth is, somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. And sometimes you're just not good enough. I had to learn that. And it was the best thing I could have learned. But today, we want to avoid that. We're going to transfer 5 times to do so.
So, John, where do we go from here? Is there a magic bullet somewhere?
Well, I think you've got to disguise your purpose. If you're the NCAA, you've got to really get back to what made this thing grassroots special. It was communal. I knew who my team was going to be next year as a fan, so I got excited about next year's team this year. I saw a team lose, and I would go, it's okay, man. Next year, we're going to be really good. How many teams say that anymore? So where is interest, if not in October when we finally figure out who's going to be on our team? If you're the NCAA, you have to also look at the fact that there's no going back. It's like raising taxes. They're never going to come back down. Once they're up, they're up. So you start to look at it and go, all right, if you're the NCAA, how do we get back to the things that we value most? How do we create communal teams? How do we create value within those communities so those players can realize some of that value as an NIL? I also think you have to recognize that if you want people to recruit freshmen, incoming freshmen, you have to protect the value of those kids that is created by the development and the investment of that coaching staff and personnel. So you have to create some sort of buyout situation. You got to start looking at contracts. If you want these kids to be professionals, then you got to help them become professionals. And I do think there's going to be a pay-for-play model that is contractual. But there also has to be something where if you leave in 2 years, you don't get that second-year roster bonus, and there's a buyout attached to your development. That's how they do it overseas. I've studied the overseas contracts. I used to have them, but now I study them to go, okay, these are developmental contracts where you have a 16-year-old who's going to play in the upper division in, say, Serie A in Italy. But if you try to, take that kid off that team, you're going to pay the club. Now, what you're paying the club for is the development that they put into that kid, the investment that they put into that kid. So I do think there's something there where we're going to professionalize this. We've got to do it cleanly. There's got to be contracts. And I think kids are going to learn really quickly that it's a lot harder to be a pro than it is to be a mercenary, as they are right now.
Well, John, as a final question of these things we've talked about here, something I think we all agree has got to be done somewhere. So who leads that charge? Who's going to be the group or the people that sort of lead a charge to get this thing where hopefully it needs to be?
Can I raise my hand? And here's why I say it. It's because I don't care about talking points. Like I'm tired of this being a talking point. It needs to be a conversation. It needs to be a real discussion. And it has to be less about the maintenance of power and control, and it has to be more about the conversation of how can I make this better beyond my legacy, right? Beyond my tenure. We live in a world where everybody is focused on doing something to make themselves look good, which often means once I'm gone, I don't care. We need somebody to come in and say, look, the focus is on making this good 20 years from now. I always said that about Indiana basketball. Stop hiring the next coach. Hire the coach that makes the job great 20 years from now. And then how do you define that? Well, that should be your process. You should stop going to a search firm to figure that out. You should sit in a room with people who are unapologetic about how great college basketball is and are unapologetic about the fact that the value that these kids have came from Lou Alcindor. It came from Irvin Magic Johnson. It came from Larry Bird. And keep going back, and you'll realize that the value was created for you. You just get to participate in it. We need balance, and we need people to be unapologetic about it. And those of us in the media in particular who are using these things as a talking point to get followers on Twitter are doing nothing but dividing people and hurting the game long term. So I would say those people you need to keep on the side. They're about their talking point. They're about trying to get a following. You need people who actually want to move forward, help this game evolve without changing who it is, right? Adapt to the current realities, but don't change what makes it really special, because ultimately you're going to lose your market, and all that value you thought you had, it's gone because people are less interested.
Well, John, as always, intriguing chat. And so we'll have to do this again as we get further down the pike.
I welcome it anytime. I love these conversations. There's a lot to be fixed, but it's still great. So somewhere in the middle, there's a solution.
As always, good conversation with Jon Crispin of ESPN. Well, up next, one shining moment, but first a timeout.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little. But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask.
Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
This is a potter's field. When people can't pay for their funerals, they are buried here. It is a lonely, desolate place, littered with unmarked headstones. No one visits. No one leaves flowers. But it doesn't have to be that way. For as low as $1 a day, you can ensure your family will have the money to pay your funeral expenses. We offer burial insurance plans that pay up to $30,000. Considering the average funeral costs more than $10,000, that's peace of mind for your family. There are no medical exams, your rates won't increase, and your policy cannot be canceled as long as you make your premium payments. Call now to get approved in minutes and ensure your final resting place is more than just a pauper's grave in a potter's field.
800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. That's 800-562-2407. Paid for by Final Expense Direct.
We all make choices about alcohol. Kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad. Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, Em, remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations, and they want honest answers in everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path, because when you talk, they hear you. Learn more at underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Here's a real-life story that affects 50% of all of us out there. It's called divorce. If you've gotten divorced and now you're struggling to pay your bills and your credit card debts are completely out of control, you need to call this special debt relief hotline right now. We help people with all kinds of money problems caused by different life challenges, a divorce, a job loss, even heavy medical bills. All these life events can sometimes financially stress you out and cause you to get out of control. We help people get their lives back by showing them ways to consolidate and reduce their debt, in some cases for a fraction of what they owe. If your credit card balances are more than $10,000, call us and learn how to reduce your credit card bills and monthly payments now. Here's our number.
Paid for by Debt.com. Call now, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584. That's 800-810-1584.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here, along with Dalton Shetler. Well, if there was a quiz about naming the most famous sports anthem in the nation, I'm guessing that One Shining Moment would be the runaway winner. Yet this week's cover story about One Shining Moment is truly a story within a story. You see, the lead narrative is the origin of the song, while the other is how it went from a napkin in Haslam, Michigan to CBS Sports. So, let's start at the beginning with the song's composer, David Barrett.
I lived in Hazlet, Michigan, so I'm a Spartan fan as well. And I was living up there, in the 80s, early 80s. And I write songs every day. And I happened to write this song, One Shining Moment, after it's not even there anymore, Nightcap 2. I went to meet a friend. He didn't show up, and a waitress who's probably still lives up there somewhere, her name is Jan, I can't think of her last name, came up after the night was through, and I was sitting there by myself at the bar, and she came up and sat down next to me, and I was watching ESPN, and I was trying to explain to her what was so amazing about, at that point, Larry Bird, who was using somebody like Soap at the time in these highlights, and I was trying to explain that this guy, this period of time of his life is, he's in the zone and nothing anyone can do about it. So she was dutifully unimpressed, but I remember thinking, well, there's, I know you should write about what you know, and I know a little bit about that, and so all of a sudden, boom, there comes this idea, and I'm writing it down madly on a napkin. Went home and wrote the music to it, and that was that.
So now David Barrett has a song, One Shining Moment. And he also has a high school buddy from his days of growing up in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. His friend lives in New York City, and he worked at that time for Sports Illustrated. His name, Armin Katayan. So Barrett gave Katayan a copy of the song for some feedback.
Well, it's funny, it was on a cassette tape. Some people may not remember those, but, I popped it in to this cassette tape. He had come to our apartment, which at the time my wife, Dee Dee, was about 484 square feet, which we actually measured at one point in time, and one bedroom on the east side of Manhattan. And he would stay with us occasionally, sleep on the fold-out couch when he was in town to do a gig or to he did some work in the advertising business, and Gray Advertising was right up the street. And so he said to me, he goes, I've written this song, I don't know what to do with it. I think it's pretty good. Would you listen to it? And, the early version of One Shining Moment had this piano prelude to it, which was called Golden Street. And I just, David's a terrific piano player, and I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. And then, the first notes of what it is now the classic One Shining Moment came up, and then I just, listened to the words, and I thought, holy cow, this is like lightning in a bottle. And I was just kind of blown away by it because, the beauty of the song, I think, is so much. The words are evocative, but there's a simplicity to the song, and there's power in simple words oftentimes. And I called David, and I was like, holy cow, Jesus, I think you've got something here. And he goes, what do you think we can do with it? And I happened to know at the time, it was just sort of kismet. I had been talking to Bob Tassi, who was the vice president of communications at CBS Sports at the time, various projects and things that we were talking about. And I called him up because they happened to be right across the street from the Time building at the time on 6th Avenue in New York. And I just said, Bob, I think I've got something here. I'm not sure if you guys are interested in any sort of, theme songs or anything like that. And he goes, wow, that's weird because we're looking for a theme song, for various sports we had. So I took it across the street, and to continue the story for a moment, I left it with Bob, and he called me back, if memory serves, he called me back like 3 hours later at my office at SI, and he goes, you're not going to believe this. I said, well, try me. And he said, I put this song on and the cassette tape in my office. I started to play it, and within about a minute, my office was full of people listening to this song. And he goes, this is an incredible song. And I'm like, yeah, I think so too. He goes, I think we're going to do something with it. So that was the beginning. It's just a confluence of events. It's weird that something that has lasted this long had such sort of humble beginnings and strange beginnings.
Now back in Michigan, when CBS Sports called David Barrett about One Shining Moment, he thought it was a gag.
Oh, I did. Isn't that funny? I thought it was some friends from the Peanut Barrel giving me a hard time, and I literally almost hung up. And fortunately, actually the guy said, his first foray was, I hope you have a good lawyer.
Now, when CBS Sports made the deal with David Barrett to use his One Shining Moment tune, it was earmarked to play at the end of the 1987 Super Bowl. But because the broadcast ran long, it was not used, which led it to be repurposed for airing for the first time in the 1987 Final Four after the title game. So what would have happened if the song had aired during that year's Super Bowl and had not been bumped back to be broadcast in the Final Four? Again, the thoughts of Armin Katayan.
It would have been a one and done. I don't think there's any question that if it had aired in the 87 Super Bowl, that it would have been a song you heard once and probably never heard again. But now it's like, I don't know, I think it's I don't think there's another anthem in sports that even approaches what One Shining Moment is. I mean, if you hear one note of that song, you know it's March Madness and it's the Final Four.
So there's the story of how a couple of high school buddies took a song written on a napkin to becoming possibly the greatest sports anthem of our time. But before we wrap up this cover story about the song One Shining Moment, one more story from composer and Michigan State basketball fan David Barrett.
In fact, when Michigan State won the national championship, which was wonderful, they had their championship rings. On their championship rings, they had One Shining Moment put on it, and they said, they called and asked if I would, if that'd be okay, and I said, of course, as long as I get one. And so they were kind enough to give me a Michigan State national championship ring, which is a testimony to Tom Izzo.
So now that you've heard the One Shining Moment story, has Armin Katayan ever wondered what might have happened if he had not taken that song to CBS Sports?
Yeah, I have. And it's weird. I've had I'm very proud of the career that I've put together over time. But you think about your obit. I think if somebody was smart about it, they might just go, that might be in the first paragraph or so. That by just pure friendship, and that's all really it was. It was just me trying to do something for a very good friend of mine. It turns out to be something that has really stood the test of time and has, I think, just had an enormous impact, on college sports. And that to me is really gratifying because, during the course of my career, I did 7 Final Fours. I was on the floor, and it remains to this day, I think, my favorite event to cover because of the power of it. I think we saw it, again this year, just how it really connects with people in ways that are almost hard to imagine. And I'll never forget, I'm from Michigan. Michigan State won in 2000. I was there on the floor standing next to Tom Izzo and Mateen Cleaves. And, the backstory on Mateen, was that when he was growing up in Flint and playing on the playgrounds of Flint by himself, shooting baskets, he would pretend that he was at a Final Four and, was going to listen to One Shining Moment. And then, to stand next to him with tears in Mateen's eyes and tears in Tom's eyes, that's an emotional wallop that you just don't get to experience very often in your life. So yeah, I'm I don't know. I've done a lot of things, but I'm as proud of what that song has represented to so many people over the years, and to have a hand in it is really, it's very gratifying.
A great story on how we got this wonderful anthem for college basketball. Well, when we come back, an unbelievable story about the Frozen Four.
So, I got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of uncertainty lurking under your hood. You know the feeling. I know I do. That sudden sinking sensation when you see a check engine light or your car unexpectedly breaks down and you're faced with sky-high repair bills. It's time to shield against unexpected repairs with CarShield. CarShield is America's most trusted auto protection company and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. Don't let the fear of a breakdown keep you up at night. Trust the Shield, CarShield, and say goodbye to terrifying repair bills and hello to peace of mind. Your plan also comes with 24/7 roadside assistance, courtesy towing, rental car options, and so much more. Don't wait till it's too late. Call CarShield now before a breakdown. Protect your wallet. Protect your car with CarShield. Get our best protection ever. Call now. You'll thank me later. 800-965-1292. 800-965-1292. That's 800-965-1292.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social Security and demanded immediate action? Did the caller know your Social Security number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with the crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information, or instant payment, email or text you pictures or documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
DeMarsico canceled inside the goal. Went back up the dasher, and UConn comes back out to center. But Serrano picks the puck up there. Then scampers back up the wing into the attacking zone. Drags into the slot. DeMarsico fires. He scores! Matt DeMarsico! Matt DeMarsico! Matt DeMarsico! Matt DeMarsico sends Penn State to its first ever Frozen Four! Absolute bedlam on the ice! Penn State streaming off the bench celebrates! They dogpile on DeMarsico! Penn State in overtime wins it 3-2 to go to its first Frozen Four! What a rocket by DeMarsico! He's the hero!
Oh, what a call by Brian Tripp, the voice of the Nittany Lions hockey team. How much fun is that? So, because Penn State is such a fun group, and by the way, the last guy standing for the Big Ten in postseason play, we've invited that voice you just heard. And Brian, welcome to our show.
Or what is left of that voice you just heard. Gentlemen, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be on and look forward to talking a little hockey.
Well, one of the amazing things about this whole story about Penn State this year is that usually teams that get to the Frozen Four are teams that have been pretty good all year. Not the case with this hockey team. In conference play, Penn State starts off the year losing its first 8 Big Ten games, 0-8 in Big Ten play, and then you go on that 14-4-4 run. And I guess my first question is, Brian, when you're 0-8 in the Big Ten, I'm guessing you weren't thinking Frozen Four.
No, not thinking Frozen Four. I think there were some signs of life during the first half of the year. They went on the road to Minnesota and dropped 2 really, really close games and played incredibly well. So there were stretches, during the first half of the season where the team would have a great defensive game, a great game from their goaltender, or a great game offensively, but they couldn't put all 3 elements together. The starting goaltender, Arseny Sergeyev, then was injured in mid-November, and after he went out of the lineup, Penn State had trouble keeping the puck out of the back of the net. So his return coincided at the start of January with this great run and going, you mentioned the winless in their first 9 Big Ten games, 0-8-1. They lost a shootout at Wrigley Field against Notre Dame on to start the new year. And then after that, they just took off. And I think there were signs of life early, but ultimately it was this group not losing belief, coming together, and then really evolving into the hockey team that we've seen here over the last couple of months. It's been really special. I think there was a lot of belief that they could get there, but to get to this point and go to the Frozen Four and be on this type of run with that start certainly is almost unimaginable, and if not kind of an improbable, impossible type thing.
I was going to say there's so many different things to follow up on, But as you talk about the storybook ride it's been for Penn State to turn a season around, go to his first ever Frozen Four, and a lot of it you gave some credit to the man in between the posts, the goalie, who came back from injury. And if I'm not wrong, and correct me if I am, he actually transferred from UConn, and to go to the Frozen Four, Penn State had to beat UConn with that call you heard just a little bit ago, just to add on to the stories here.
Yeah, and he played tremendous in that game. I thought Penn State over the first two periods of the regional championship was excellent, and they probably deserved to have a lead, but coming out of that second period, it's a tie game at 2, and UConn just found its game. They were wearing Penn State down. They continued to cycle the puck in the Penn State zone, and they had quality opportunities in the third period, late in the third period, to win the game, and then in overtime. But Sergeyev made some unbelievable saves. And right going into that game, Penn State had supreme confidence in him, but you never know. How's a guy going to handle that, going against his former team for the first time? And to see him play that way on that stage, with how impactful his return to the lineup was to start this whole run, I'd say it's the combination of his return to the lineup and great leadership. Those two things probably the most important factors among many important factors on what's been a great run.
Well, up next you got Boston University. So what are you thinking about that one?
Well, it's two teams that love to get up and down the ice. I think that was the thing going into the regional. Penn State knocking off the top seed in the regional, Maine, and then UConn out of the Hockey East, especially Maine. They were a big, physical opponent. So it was two contrasting styles. And then as that game against UConn played out, I think we learned that, man, they can play that heavy physical game as well and really get after you on the forecheck. Boston University is a lot like Penn State. Now, they have the experience of being in the Frozen Four each of the last 3 seasons. So Penn State doesn't have that. BU has the experience of being there, but they are a very skilled, very fast team that wants to get up and down the ice, and they were in a similar boat. They went to a goaltender who they signed out of the junior leagues, who joined the team in January. And while they had a good start to the year, it wasn't great. And they kind of got going the second half of the year and down the stretch. So I think it's two teams that play a similar brand of hockey. Look, the way that both goalies have played, it sure could be a low-scoring game, but I would not be surprised if this is the team that wins has 5, 6, even 7 goals in a game like this between these two.
Brian, I want to ask you here, too, because you're involved with other sports as well. Hockey's not the only sport for you, so this is maybe the right person to ask and get this perspective. You get a team in hockey that's as hot as Penn State is right now. Is that one of the most unique and fun things in all of sports? It seems like specific to hockey, when a team gets hot, that's a ride that just isn't quite paralleled.
Well, I know you guys both know this as well from covering the basketball and basketball postseasons. I think the format of the postseason too, Dalton, with it being, look, as you get to a regional, you're 4 wins from a national championship, you're 1 bad bounce, you're 1 bad call, or a couple of bad calls in Minnesota's case, a goalie having an off night, and your season's over no matter what you accomplished, like so many teams in the Big Ten did. I think if you told us going into this tournament that out of Minnesota, Ohio State, and Michigan State, which had such a great year winning the Big Ten regular season and Big Ten postseason, I think you'd be really surprised that Penn State's the only of the 4 left standing from a really good league when you get to the Frozen Four in St. Louis. I think it's the format of the postseason, but as you watch the NHL playoffs play out, it's just such a unique thing in this sport. A team, when they get hot, it is really dangerous in hockey, and obviously it all centers back to that man between the pipes again. And I think when you have hot goaltending this time of year and outstanding goaltending, that can be a real difference maker down the stretch in a postseason.
Brian, we mentioned it a couple of times throughout this conversation, but the first ever Frozen Four for Penn State hockey. I hate to just kind of lobby the softball of what does this mean for the program, but what are some of the folks saying, the coaches, the fans, the players, because it's got to be a buzz that's unprecedented for this program. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, I think it's even more special because of how they went about getting to it, right? This unprecedented second half run, which has obviously been the best stretch in program history. But then in the regional, it's in Allentown, Pennsylvania, which is in eastern PA, and it allowed Penn State fans to be there. It was sold out. The crowd was unbelievable, and everyone affiliated with the program, I think since day one, they got a large donation from Terry and Kim Pagula, Pegula obviously owns the Buffalo Sabres and Buffalo Bills as well, but he's a Penn Stater. And their goal was to build a hockey community at Penn State, and where Penn State would attract players from Philadelphia, from Pittsburgh, where they have a lot of great players from. The guy you heard me screech his name in the game-winning goal call, Matt DeMarsico, he's from Pittsburgh. And they wanted Penn State to be a place that attracted the players in Pennsylvania to come, and that's where you grow, you develop, and then turn to be professional. And then what it would mean for the community to have 2 sheets of ice. So I think it's like the culmination of not only the coaching staff, Guy Godowski and his top assistant, Keith Fisher, have been here since the get-go when they went Division I, first playing their first year in 2012, 2013. You know, they were a club team just 15 years ago. I think it's the culmination of a vision and then a building a foundation for a program, and then seeing the way the community has grabbed a hold of hockey here at Penn State, and then to watch them take this wild ride with them and probably be as impactful on that ride as anything, to have the home support of the fans playing at their great arena, Pegula Ice Arena, and then for those fans to be there in Allentown, I think it made it that much more special. So it's really a culmination of so many great things, and you're right, the buzz is like nothing this program's ever felt before, maybe with the exception of when they finally announced they were going D1, which was in 2010. So to think of how far it's come in such relative short time against all those blue bloods in this conference, they had unprecedented success right away, but to finally get to this stage, it feels like the crowning moment, at least to this point, for the program.
Well, you're heading to St. Louis. Last time the Frozen Four was in St. Louis was 2007. The Big Ten sent a team, and that Big Ten team won it. So, Michigan State claimed it in 2007, so if you're superstitious, maybe it'll be Penn State claiming it in 2025 in St. Louis, Missouri. Well, best of luck, Brian. Good luck. You're
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're waving the banner for the Big Ten. Let's go.
No Big Ten team has won it since Michigan State in 2007.
So here, it's time. It is time.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Yeah, appreciate it.
A nice chat with Brian Tripp, the voice of the Penn State hockey team. By the way, the Nittany Lions will be playing Boston U, and Western Michigan will take on Denver. That's the setup for this year's Frozen Four. Takes place in about a week. Back with more and our parting shots in just a moment.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little, but thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
Everything is expensive right now. Gas, food, you name it. You're spending more, you are making the same or less money. So, what do? You rack up credit card debt, that's what you do. It's not your fault. It's the economy. And guess what? If you rack up too much credit card debt like some of us, you can't pay your bills. Then the credit card companies, as nice as they are, start hounding you for money. Then you start your downward spiral. A smart thing for you to do is to call the Zero Debt. They can help you consolidate all your credit card bills into one affordable payment. Millions of people have done it. It works to make you debt-free. Make this free call right now. It costs you nothing to learn more.
800-298-9093. 800-298-9093. 800-298-9093. That's 800-298-9093.
We are strong, we are resilient, and we will get through this together. But these are stressful times, and it's important to also practice good self-care. It's normal to feel overwhelmed, anxious, or afraid, but there is hope. Reach out to someone, connect with your friends, stay in touch with your community, and know that you are not alone. Learn more at wearebroadcasters.com/hope. Furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
I found hope in the midst of an overwhelming situation.
Alcoholism is a disease that can affect any family. Everyone suffers, but there is help and hope at Al-Anon Family Groups.
Al-Anon gave me my life back. I'm a better father and husband.
Are you in an overwhelming situation because of someone else's drinking?
Al-Anon and Alateen can help.
Local and virtual meetings are available. Maybe one could work for you. Call 1-866-200-0033 or visit alanon.org/hope.
I'm Naheem Hines, professional football player. No matter the challenges I face every day in the NFL, my mom is always there for me, despite her own struggles with muscular dystrophy. And MDA is there for my mom. At their 150 care centers across the U.S., MDA is the leading organization in research and care for kids and adults with muscular dystrophy, ALS, and related neuromuscular diseases. Join me and learn more at helpmda.org today. Thank you.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, we've had a nice show here this week. Jon Crispin's comments about college basketball as it is was pretty intriguing. The one shining moment story, Dalton, is just, it's priceless. It never gets old. And, of course, a salute to Penn State Hockey as they have finally made a Frozen Four. So with that, it is now time for our parting shots.
And before we take that baton and run, let's go ahead and remind everybody that you can follow us on Twitter or X, whatever you call it, at SportsLifeNow is our name. We post the entire show, all the interviews back there as well, so make sure you give us a follow. For my parting shot, I want to continue the celebration that it has been the season for Big Ten women's basketball, a historic campaign for Big Ten women's basketball. 12 teams made the NCAA tournament, which is a new conference record, and the conference also did something else for the first time with this past week's news, where the Big Ten swept the Naismith National Awards for the first time ever in conference history. Your National Coach of the Year, Corey Close, the UCLA head women's basketball coach. Your National Defensive Player of the Year, Lauren Betts, the UCLA star. And your National Player of the Year, Juju Watkins from USC. So for the first time ever, as they continued to knock off some unprecedented things, the Big Ten sweeps the Naismith National Awards.
Which is kind of neat.
That is.
Which is kind of neat. Okay, I'm going to go back to something that Jon Crispin said in the interview we had with him. And during that conversation, he talked about how the mid-majors basically have become the feeding system for the Division I higher up in programs. And so we've all been talking about this particular NCAA tournament has been missing some of that madness, some of that Cinderella stuff. Like a year ago, we had Oakland knocking off Kentucky, and we had Oakland almost beating NC State. That went overtime. And who could forget a couple years ago when Fairleigh Dickinson upset number 1 seed Purdue as a 16 seed. All of that fun was not there this year. And it could be because of what John said. The players that could propel, say, Oakland past Kentucky, well, they all left. They went somewhere else. And take a look at the Auburn Tigers this year. The number one seed are powered by a guy named Broom who came from Morehead State. They have another starter. His name is Jones. He came from FIU. And then there's a guy named Chaney Johnson who comes off the bench. He came from Alabama Huntsville. That's a Division II program. So maybe we'll never see a 16 beating a 1 again, or maybe we'll never see what Oakland did a year ago. I hope that's not true, but you never know. So with that wraps up our show for this week. Thanks for joining us. And we should also note that you can find us wherever you find your podcast, like SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple. And make sure to check us out and hit subscribe. As always, thanks to the Big Ten Network. The Sports Life is produced by Dalton Shetler and assisted by Owen Cronin. Our executive producer is Wendy Hart. So on behalf of Dalton Shetler, I'm Will Tiemann, and thanks for your time.